The message arrived at 3 in the morning, Earth time. Ambassador Sarah Chen woke to the sharp beeping of her emergency communicator. She reached for the device with tired eyes, but the red priority seal made her sit up straight. The Galactic Council was calling an emergency session. She had 12 hours to reach Nexus Prime. Sarah dressed quickly in her formal diplomatic robes. The dark blue fabric felt heavy on her shoulders. She had worn these robes to sign trade agreements and peace treaties. Today felt different. The message gave no details, but emergency sessions were rare. Something big was happening. Her assistant, Marcus, met her at the transport dock. His face was pale. "Ambassador, we just received word from Earth Command. The Zephyrian Empire has filed formal charges against humanity." "What charges?" Sarah asked, as they boarded the fast ship to Nexus Prime. "They claim we have illegal weapons. Planet Killer class weapons." Sarah felt her stomach drop. Planet killers were banned by galactic law. Any species caught with them faced immediate sanctions or worse. "That's impossible. Earth doesn't have anything like that." Marcus handed her a datapad. "They say they have proof." The journey to Nexus Prime took 8 hours through hyperspace. Sarah spent the time reading reports and trying to understand what was happening. Earth had joined the Galactic Council 30 years ago. They were still new compared to other species that had been part of the galaxy for thousands of years. Many aliens still didn't trust humans. The Zephyrian Empire was the strongest military force in the galaxy. They controlled over 200 star systems. Their ships were massive, their weapons powerful. Emperor Vex Thar had ruled for 50 years and never lost a war. If the Zephyrians wanted to destroy Earth, they could do it easily. When Sarah arrived at Nexus Prime, the massive space station buzzed with activity. Ships from all 12 Council species filled the docking bays. She could see the huge Zephyrian warships hanging in space like dark metal moons. Their weapon ports glowed with barely contained energy. The Council chamber was a giant circular room with floating platforms for each species. The human platform was small compared to others. Sarah took her place and looked around. Representatives from 11 species watched her with suspicious eyes. Only the Karani delegate, a tall being with silver skin, seemed neutral. Emperor Vexthar entered the chamber like a storm. He was 8 feet tall with gray scales and burning red eyes. His voice boomed across the room without need for amplifiers. "Council members," he began, "humanity has violated the weapons treaty. They have built planet-killer devices in their home system. We have proof." A hologram appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed Earth's solar system from space. Sarah recognized the planets and moons she had grown up seeing in textbooks. But now there were strange energy readings covering the display. Red warnings flashed around several locations. 3 weeks ago, our patrol ships detected massive energy signatures, the Emperor continued. These readings match known planet-killer weapons. Humanity has been secretly building weapons of mass destruction. The other council members shifted nervously. The Altarian delegate, a creature that looked like a giant insect, clicked its mandibles. "This is very serious. Planet killers threaten all life in the galaxy." Sarah stood up. Her platform rose slightly so others could see her better. "Emperor Vexthar, these accusations are false. Earth has no planet-killer weapons. We have never built such devices." The Emperor's red eyes fixed on her. "Then explain these energy readings. Our sensors don't lie." "I don't know what your sensors detected," Sarah said carefully. "But I can promise you, it wasn't weapons. Earth follows all galactic laws." "Promises mean nothing," the Emperor growled. "We demand immediate inspection of all human facilities. You will surrender these weapons, or we will take them by force." The council chamber erupted in voices. Some species supported the Emperor's demands. Others called for more investigation. The Karani delegate remained quiet. But Sarah could see concern in their large eyes. The Draconian representative, a lizard-like being with golden scales, raised a clawed hand. "The Zephyrian Empire has never been wrong about weapons detection. If they say humanity has planet killers, we must act. But humans are new to the galaxy. said the Aquarian delegate through their translation device. Perhaps they don't understand the laws. Emperor Vexthar slammed his fist on his platform. Ignorance is no excuse. These weapons threaten every world in this sector. We cannot wait for humanity to use them. Sarah felt the weight of a dozen alien gazes. These beings could decide Earth's fate with a single vote. She had to think fast. I request time to consult with my government, she said. Give us 72 hours to investigate these readings. If we find anything that violates galactic law, we will surrender it willingly. 72 hours? The Emperor laughed, a harsh sound like grinding metal. Time enough to hide the evidence or prepare an attack. The Altarian delegate clicked again. Perhaps a compromise? We vote now on sanctions. If humanity cooperates with inspections, we can discuss lifting them later. Sarah's heart raced. Sanctions would cut Earth off from galactic trade and protection. Humanity would be alone again, just as they had been before first contact. The vote was swift. 11 species voted for immediate sanctions. Only the Qurani abstained. Sarah felt the weight of failure crushing down on her. The sanctions are in effect immediately, announced the council speaker, an ancient being from the ethereal species. Humanity has 72 hours to agree to full weapons inspections, or the sanctions will become permanent. Emperor Vexthar smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. And if these weapons are not surrendered, the Zephyrian Empire will consider Earth a threat to galactic peace. We will act to protect the galaxy. Everyone understood what that meant. The Emperor was threatening war. Sarah's communicator buzzed with an encrypted message from Earth. She read it quickly and felt her blood turn cold. The message was short but clear. New Horizon never reached Kepler, 442. All contact lost 3 weeks ago. Debris field confirmed. 3 weeks ago. The same time the Zephyrians detected their mysterious energy signatures, Sarah looked up at Emperor Vexthar with new eyes. Something terrible was becoming clear. But she needed proof before she could act. She had 72 hours to save her species and uncover the truth. I accept the timeline, she told the council. 72 hours. Sarah Chen returned to the council chamber exactly 72 hours later. She carried a small data device and wore the same formal robes, but her face looked different. The other delegates noticed the change immediately. Where before there had been confusion and worry, now there was something harder. Something dangerous. Emperor Vexthar sat on his platform like a predator waiting for prey. His red eyes gleamed with satisfaction. The other council members whispered among themselves, clearly expecting humanity's surrender. Ambassador Chen, the council speaker announced, have you reached a decision regarding the weapons inspections? Sarah stood and activated her platform's communication system. Her voice carried clearly through the chamber. The United Earth government accepts the inspection of our facilities. We have nothing to hide. A murmur of surprise ran through the room. Several delegates looked disappointed, as if they had hoped for more drama. Emperor Vexthar leaned forward, his scaled face showing confusion. However, Sarah continued, we have one condition. The murmur turned into shocked silence. No one made conditions when facing the Zephyrian Empire. It simply wasn't done. Earth demands that the Zephyrian Empire also submit to inspection of their recent military activities in Sector 7G. Emperor Vexthar's roar of laughter shook the chamber. Impossible. The Zephyrian Empire answers to no one. We are the accusers, not the accused. The inspection is directly related to the energy signatures your ships detected, Sarah said calmly. If you want to inspect our facilities, you must allow us to inspect yours. The draconian delegate hissed angrily. Humanity has no right to make demands. You are facing sanctions and possible military action. Then let me explain why Sector 7G matters, Sarah said. She activated her data device. A new hologram appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed a different star system, one with a yellow star similar to Earth's sun. This is the Kepler 442 system, she explained. 3 weeks ago, our deep space monitoring stations recorded something interesting. The hologram began to move, showing events in fast forward. A large ship appeared near the system's edge. It was clearly human-built, with the white and blue colors of Earth's civilian fleet. As they watched, the ship moved slowly toward the system's habitable planet. The ship you see is called New Horizon, Sarah continued. It carried 50,000 civilians. Emperor Vexthar shifted uncomfortably. What does this have to do with our weapons detection? Watch, Sarah said simply. The hologram continued. Suddenly, 3 dark shapes appeared at the edge of the display. They moved fast, much faster than the civilian ship. As they came closer, everyone in the chamber could see they were Zephyrian warships. What happened next sent shockwaves through the council. The warships opened fire without warning. Massive energy beams struck the civilian ship. In seconds, New Horizon exploded in a ball of fire and debris. The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted in multiple languages. The Aquarian representative made choking sounds through their translator. Even the ancient ethereal speaker seemed shaken. Emperor Vexthar shot to his feet. This is false. Our ships were not in that system. The recording comes from our deep space network, Sarah replied. Every transmission is verified and time-stamped. Would you like to see the technical data? She displayed the timestamp at the bottom of the recording. The date and time matched exactly with the Emperor's claim about detecting energy signatures from human space. But that's impossible. The Altarian delegate clicked rapidly. The energy readings came from your system, not from Kepler. 442. Sarah nodded. You're right. The energy your ships detected wasn't from Earth. It was the reflection of your own weapons fire. She enhanced the hologram, zooming in on the moment of the ship's destruction. New Horizon was equipped with quantum communication arrays. When your ships destroyed it, the arrays created an energy reflection that traveled back to our system through quantum space. That's what you detected. The explanation was technical, but the implications were clear. The Zephyrians had detected their own weapon's signature, reflected from their victims. Lies, Emperor Vexthar roared. Our ships had no reason to fire on a civilian vessel. Then explain this, Sarah said. She played another part of the recording. This time it showed the moments before the attack. New Horizon was broadcasting standard civilian identification codes. The ship was clearly marked as a refugee transport. Refugees? The Karani delegates spoke for the first time, their voice filled with horror. Sarah's face remained controlled, but her voice carried pain. New Horizon was returning from the lunar colonies. A solar storm had damaged their life support systems. 50,000 men, women, and children were evacuating to Earth for safety. The chamber fell silent, except for the soft humming of the life support systems. Every delegate stared at the frozen image of the destroyed ship. You murdered refugees, Sarah said, looking directly at Emperor Vexthar. Innocent people fleeing for their lives. And then you accused their families of building weapons. The Emperor's scales had turned a darker gray. If this recording is real, it was a mistake. Our ships must have thought. Must have thought what? Sarah interrupted. That a clearly marked civilian ship broadcasting refugee status was a military threat? She played another recording, this one showing New Horizon's final transmission. A human voice spoke calmly, despite alarms blaring in the background. This is Captain Martinez of the refugee ship New Horizon. We are carrying civilians, mostly families with children. Please respond. The transmission ended in static when the ship exploded. Several delegates were making sounds of distress. The Aquarian was openly weeping through their breathing apparatus. Even the usually cold Draconian looked shaken. But why would Zephyrian ships be in that system? The Altarian delegate asked. Sarah smiled grimly. That's what I'd like to know. Kepler 442 is outside Zephyrian territory. What were 3 warships doing there? And why did they attack a refugee ship without warning? Emperor Vexthar's red eyes darted around the chamber. He could see the other delegates watching him with new suspicion. The ships were on patrol. The captain must have made an error in judgment. An error that killed 50,000 innocent people, Sarah said. And now you want to inspect Earth for weapons? You want to threaten my people with war? After you murdered our civilians? The recordings had changed everything. What started as humanity defending against weapons charges had become the Zephyrian Empire defending against charges of mass murder. I demand a full investigation, the Karani delegate announced. This appears to be a clear violation of the Civilian Protection Treaty. Other delegates began voicing similar demands. Emperor Vex Thar found himself facing questions instead of giving orders, but Sarah wasn't finished. She had one more revelation that would change the balance of galactic power forever. She looked around the chamber one last time, then spoke the words that would echo through history. Council members, there's something else you need to know about New Horizon and its passengers. The council chamber grew quiet as Sarah Chen prepared to speak. Every delegate leaned forward. Sensing that something important was about to be revealed, Emperor Vexthar watched her with growing unease, his red eyes narrowing. The passengers on New Horizon weren't random refugees, Sarah began, her voice steady but carrying an undercurrent of pain. They were specific people. Important people. She activated her data device again. New images appeared in the hologram display. Personal photos of families, children playing, couples holding hands. All human faces. All smiling in happier times. These were the families of Earth's entire diplomatic corps, Sarah continued. Every human ambassador, every trade representative, every cultural attaché serving in the galaxy had family members on that ship. The revelation hit the chamber like a physical blow. Several delegates gasped. The Aquarian made choking sounds again. Even the ancient ethereal speaker seemed to shiver. My husband David was on that ship, Sarah said. And for the first time, her voice wavered slightly. Along with my two children, Emma and Michael. Emma was 7 years old. Michael was 5. She paused, collecting herself. When she spoke again, her voice was like steel. Ambassador Torres had his elderly parents on that ship. They were returning from their first visit to Luna City. Ambassador Okafor's pregnant wife was there, along with their 3 other children. Ambassador Kim's twin babies, only 6 months old. With each name, another face appeared in the hologram. Fathers, mothers, grandparents, children. A whole community of human families, now gone forever. The lunar colonies were where we sent our diplomats' families for safety, Sarah explained. Away from Earth's politics and dangers. Away from any potential conflicts with alien species. We thought they would be safer there. Away from Earth's politics and dangers of the politics. Emperor Vexthar shifted uncomfortably on his platform. We did not know these were diplomatic families. Would it have mattered? Sarah asked, turning to face him directly. They were civilians, refugees, children. Does it matter whose children they were when you decided to murder them? The Emperor had no answer. Sarah turned back to the full council. Every human representative in this galaxy is here because we lost everything. We're not serving our species out of duty anymore. We're serving them out of grief, out of rage, out of the need for justice. She walked to the edge of her platform, closer to the other delegates. You want to know what those energy signatures really were? They weren't weapons. They were New Horizons radiation shielding. A new image appeared in the hologram. Technical diagrams of the refugee ship's defensive systems. The lunar colonies were hit by a massive solar storm, the kind that happens once every 50 years. The radiation would have killed everyone within days. New Horizon was equipped with experimental shielding to protect the refugees during their journey back to Earth. The technical display showed energy patterns that looked similar to weapon signatures. To untrained sensors, they might indeed appear threatening. Your ships detected the radiation shielding and assumed it was a weapon, Sarah continued. So you destroyed a ship full of refugees who were already running from death. Emperor Vexthar's scales had turned almost black. If we had known, you would have what? Sarah's voice rose for the first time. Asked questions first? Demanded identification? Followed basic military protocol before firing on civilians? Quote, the chamber was completely silent now. Even the background hum of the life support systems seemed muted. Sarah returned to the center of her platform. When she spoke next, her words would be remembered by every species in the galaxy for generations to come. Emperor Vexthar, you asked for proof that New Horizon was a civilian vessel. You wanted evidence that your ships committed murder. You demanded justification for inspecting your military activities. She paused, meeting the eyes of every delegate in the chamber. You want proof? You attacked our home. The words echoed in the vast chamber like thunder. Several delegates physically recoiled. The Draconian let out a hiss of shock. The Karani covered their face with their hands. Those families weren't just passengers, Sarah continued, her voice growing stronger with each word. They were our home, our heart, our reason for being here in the first place. She gestured to the images still floating in the hologram. Every human in the diplomatic service left Earth to build bridges between our species and yours. We came to learn, to trade, to share knowledge and culture. We brought our families to the Luna colonies so they could be part of this new future. Her voice broke slightly. We trusted the galaxy to be safe for them. Emperor Vexthar tried to speak. Ambassador Chen, if this is true, then perhaps reparations. Reparations? Sarah laughed. But there was no humor in it. You think you can pay for murdering children? You think credits can replace a father reading bedtime stories to his daughter? She activated the hologram again, showing the final moments of New Horizon. The explosion played in slow motion, debris scattering across space like fallen stars. You didn't just kill 50,000 people, Sarah said. You killed our faith in galactic civilization. You proved that the strong still prey on the weak, that might makes right. That innocence means nothing to those with power. The accusations hung in the air like poison. Several delegates looked ashamed. Others looked angry, but not at humanity. And now, Sarah continued, you have the audacity to accuse us of building weapons, to threaten our homeworld with destruction? After what you've done? She turned to face the full council. Council members. The Zephyrian Empire claims to protect galactic peace. They say their military keeps us all safe from threats. But who protects us from them? The question struck at the heart of galactic politics. The Zephyrians were the strongest military force, but that strength came with the assumption that they would use it responsibly. You destroyed a refugee ship without warning, Sarah said, looking directly at Emperor Vexthar. You killed diplomatic families fleeing a natural disaster. You murdered children who had never hurt anyone in their short lives. The Emperor's hands were shaking now. It was a mistake. A terrible mistake. A mistake. Sarah's voice rose again. Your ships were in a system they had no right to be in. They fired on a clearly marked civilian vessel. They ignored refugee distress calls. They destroyed families, and then left the debris floating in space like garbage. She paused, letting the weight of the accusations sink in. That wasn't a mistake, Emperor. That was murder. And now you want to threaten Earth with the same fate. The chamber had become a court, and Emperor Vexthar was on trial. The other delegates watched him with growing horror and suspicion. The being they had feared and respected was revealing himself to be something much worse. Sarah Chen stood tall on her platform, no longer the confused diplomat who had arrived 3 days earlier. She had become something new, something dangerous. You made us your enemy the day you fired on refugees. Now the question is, what are we going to do about it? The council chamber buzzed with urgent whispers after Sarah's declaration. Emergency communications flashed between delegates and their home governments. Everyone understood that the galaxy's balance of power was shifting before their eyes. The council speaker, ancient and wise, called for order. The evidence presented by Ambassador Chen is deeply troubling. The council demands a full investigation into the destruction of the human refugee vessel. Emperor Vexthar stood abruptly, his massive frame dominating his platform. The Zephyrian Empire will not submit to investigation by inferior species. We have sovereign immunity under galactic law. Several delegates hissed their displeasure, but the Emperor continued. If this council cannot appreciate our role in maintaining galactic security, perhaps it is time for the Empire to reconsider our membership. The threat was clear. Without Zephyrian military protection, many smaller species would be vulnerable to pirates, raiders, and hostile neighbors. The Empire had used this leverage for decades to get their way. The Draconian delegate spoke nervously. Perhaps we should consider the Empire's position. They provide essential security services. Security? The Karani delegate's voice was sharp with anger. They murdered 50,000 refugees. And call it security? One incident should not overshadow centuries of protection, the Altarian added, though their clicking sounded uncertain. Emperor Vexthar smiled, showing his sharp teeth. The council understands wisdom when they hear it. This matter is closed. But Sarah Chen was not finished. She had remained quiet during the debate, watching the political theater play out. Now she stepped forward with the calm confidence of someone holding the winning cards. Before this matter is closed, she said, I have something else to share with the council. She activated her data device again. New information appeared in the holographic display. Technical readouts, energy patterns, and weapon specifications filled the air. While this council has been debating sanctions against Earth, my people have been busy. The debris from New Horizon provided us with interesting information about Zephyrian military technology. Emperor Vexthar's red eyes narrowed. What are you saying? I'm saying that human engineers are very good at solving puzzles, Sarah replied calmly. When you destroyed our families, you gave us pieces of your ships to study. Weapon fragments, shield generators, computer cores, all floating in space, waiting to be collected. The Emperor stepped closer to the edge of his platform. Impossible. Our ships were not damaged in that engagement. No, but they left traces, Sarah explained. Energy residue, quantum signatures, even microscopic particles from your weapons. Enough for our scientists to reverse engineer your technology. The implications hit the chamber like a physical blow. If humanity could copy Zephyrian weapons, it would change the entire galactic military balance. Furthermore, Sarah continued, we discovered something interesting about your weapons systems. They all operate on the same quantum frequency. A frequency that human technology can now disrupt. She held up a small device, no bigger than her hand. It looked harmless, like a simple communication tool. This is a quantum disruptor, she explained. Our engineers built it from the wreckage of your attack. It can disable any technology operating on Zephyrian frequencies. Emperor Vexthar laughed, but the sound was forced. One small device against the Empire's entire fleet? You are bluffing. Am I? Sarah asked. She looked around the chamber, noting the Zephyrian technology present, the Emperor's personal shield generator, the weapons scanners at the chamber entrance, the life support systems in his environmental suit. Perhaps we should test it, she said. Several delegates called out warnings, but Sarah had already activated the device. A pulse of energy, invisible but powerful, swept through the chamber. The effect was immediate and devastating. Every piece of Zephyrian technology in the room simply stopped working. The Emperor's personal shields flickered and died. His weapon systems went dark. Most importantly, his environmental suit began to fail. Emperor Vexthar gasped as the alien atmosphere of Nexus Prime hit his lungs. His species needed a different gas mixture to breathe. Without his life support, he was suffocating. The other delegates watched in shock as the most powerful military leader in the galaxy fell to his knees, clutching his throat. His red eyes bulged with panic and lack of oxygen. Sarah stood over him, the small device still glowing in her hand. The question now, Emperor, is whether the galaxy will stand with murderers or with their victims. She let him suffer for a few more seconds, then deactivated the disruptor. Immediately, his life support systems came back online. The Emperor gasped desperately, sucking in the artificial atmosphere his suit provided. That was just a demonstration, Sarah said calmly, as the Emperor struggled to his feet. Earth now has the ability to disable your entire fleet with the push of a button. Ships, weapons, life support, everything. Your military advantage is gone. The chamber erupted again, but this time the voices were different. Where before there had been fear of Zephyrian power, now there was excitement at the possibility of freedom from it. The Aquarian delegate spoke through their translator, their voice bubbling with emotion. You mean we don't have to fear them anymore? No one needs to fear them anymore, Sarah confirmed. Earth is willing to share this technology with any species that supports justice for the New Horizon massacre. Emperor Vexthar's face had turned from gray to nearly black with rage. You dare threaten the Empire? I'm not threatening anyone, Sarah replied. I'm making a promise. Any species that targets civilians will face the same consequences you just experienced, but permanently. She turned to address the full council. For too long, this galaxy has operated under the rule of might makes right. The strong prey on the weak, while calling it protection. Children die while their murderers claim sovereign immunity. Her voice carried clearly to every delegate. Earth offers a different path. We offer protection for the innocent, justice for the guilty, and freedom from fear for everyone. The political implications were staggering. Species that had lived under Zephyrian protection for centuries suddenly saw an alternative. A chance to be free from both threats and protectors. The Karani delegate was the first to speak. The Karani Republic formally requests a mutual defense agreement with Earth. The Altarian Hive seconds this request, clicked their representative. One by one, other species began voicing similar requests. The galactic order was crumbling before their eyes, and humanity was offering to help rebuild it on better foundations. Emperor Vexthar watched his empire dissolve with growing fury. This is not over. He snarled at Sarah. The Zephyrian Empire has resources you cannot imagine. We will not be defeated by primitive humans. Sarah looked at him with something approaching pity. Emperor, your empire was already defeated the moment you chose to murder innocents. You just didn't know it yet. She held up the disruptor device again. This isn't about primitive humans defeating advanced aliens. This is about the victims of your crimes finally having the power to demand justice. The Emperor had no response. His threats meant nothing now that everyone knew humanity could neutralize his weapons. His power was based on fear, and that fear was gone. But the real reckoning was just beginning. 3 months after the confrontation in the council chamber, the Zephyrian Empire was no longer the same force that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries. Emperor Vexthar had been overthrown by his own military council just days after returning home. The generals who replaced him understood what their former leader had refused to accept. The age of Zephyrian dominance was over. General Carthex, the new leader of the Zephyrian Republic, stood before the Galactic Council with none of his predecessors' arrogance. His scales were a humble, gray, and he kept his eyes downcast as he spoke. The Zephyrian Republic formally accepts full responsibility for the massacre of the human refugee vessel New Horizon, he announced. We submit to council oversight and agree to pay reparations to the families of the victims. Sarah Chen watched from the human platform, but she felt no satisfaction in the moment. Justice was important, but it could not bring back her husband and children. It could not erase the nightmares or fill the empty spaces in her heart. The new Zephyrian leadership had also revealed the truth about their ship's presence in the Kepler 442 system. They had been testing new weapons on remote planets, violating multiple galactic treaties in the process. The refugee ship had been destroyed to hide evidence of their illegal activities. We also surrender our claims to 12 star systems that were taken by force, General Carthex continued. These worlds will be returned to their original inhabitants or placed under council protection. The political changes were happening faster than anyone had expected. 7 species had withdrawn from Zephyrian protection agreements after learning about the massacre. 2 others had signed new defense pacts with Earth. The balance of galactic power had shifted completely. But the most significant change was happening on Earth itself. Sarah had returned home between council sessions to find her planet transformed by grief and purpose. Memorial gardens now grew where the lunar refugee camps had once stood. Each garden contained 50,000 trees, one for every life lost aboard New Horizon. Their names were carved into black stone monuments that stretched for miles. David Chen, loving husband and father. Emma Chen, age 7, who loved drawing pictures of alien flowers. Michael Chen, age 5, who wanted to be a starship captain when he grew up. Sarah knelt before their names every morning, telling them about her work in the galaxy, about the justice they had won, and the changes their deaths had brought. She hoped somehow they could hear her. The human military had grown as well, but not in the way anyone expected. Instead of building massive fleets like the Zephyrians, Earth had created something new. The Civilian Protection Force, fast ships designed not for conquest but for rescue. Weapons intended not for attack but for the defense of innocents. When pirates attacked a Karani merchant convoy, human ships arrived within hours to drive them off. When a plague struck the Altarian worlds, human medical ships brought aid without asking for payment. When natural disasters threatened smaller species, Earth responded with relief efforts that saved millions of lives. "We're not trying to replace the Zephyrians as galactic overlords," Sarah had explained to the Council. "We're trying to create something better. A galaxy where the strong protect the weak instead of exploiting them." The approach was working. Species that had never trusted aliens were now requesting human assistance. The Aquarian homeworld, which had been isolated for centuries, opened its borders to human diplomats. The mysterious ethereal collective began sharing ancient knowledge with human scientists. Even former Zephyrian allies were switching sides. The proud Draconian Empire, after witnessing human rescue efforts during a massive asteroid impact, formally apologized for supporting the weapons sanctions. "We were wrong about humanity," the Draconian Chancellor had announced. "They are not builders of weapons but builders of hope." Sarah stood in the council chamber one final time as the official human ambassador. Tomorrow, she would return to Earth permanently. Her replacement was already learning the procedures, but Sarah's work here was done. The Karani delegate approached her after the session. Their silver skins seemed to glow in the chamber's light. "Ambassador Chen," they said in their musical voice, "the Karani people have prepared something for you." They handed her a small crystal cube. Inside, suspended in perfect detail, was a three-dimensional image of New Horizon, as it had been before the attack. The ship looked peaceful and whole, full of life and hope. "We have also prepared memorials on our homeworld," the Karani continued. "Your families will be remembered among our greatest heroes. The ones who died, so that others might live free." Similar gifts came from other species. The Altarians had composed a song cycle about the refugees' journey. The Aquarians had grown a coral garden in the shape of New Horizon, in their deepest ocean. Even some Zephyrian colonies had erected monuments to the victims. The galaxy was learning to mourn properly, to honor the dead and protect the living. As Sarah prepared to leave Nexus Prime for the last time, she received one final visitor. General Carthex requested a private meeting in her quarters. The Zephyrian leader looked smaller than she remembered. His red eyes held genuine remorse as he spoke. "Ambassador Chen, I know my words cannot heal your pain. But I want you to know, the Zephyrian people will never forget what we did. We will spend generations trying to earn forgiveness." Sarah studied his face carefully. "General, I appreciate your words. But forgiveness isn't something you can earn. It's something the victims give freely, if and when they choose to." "And do you?" he asked quietly. "Can you ever forgive us?" Sarah was quiet for a long moment, thinking of her husband's laugh and her children's smiles. "I can forgive the Zephyrian people," she said finally. "You were led by a monster who made monstrous choices. But I will never forget what happened. None of us will." She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. "The dead don't want revenge, General. They want their deaths to have meaning. They want their sacrifice to make the galaxy better for other families." "And has it?" he asked. Sarah smiled sadly. "Ask me in 100 years, when children of all species can travel safely between the stars. When no parent has to fear losing their family to the ambitions of tyrants. When the strong use their power to lift up the weak, instead of crushing them." She turned back to face him. "If we can build that galaxy, then yes, their deaths will have had meaning." General Carthex bowed deeply, then left without another word. Sarah packed her few belongings and prepared for the journey home. Earth needed her now more than the galaxy did. The Civilian Protection Force required experienced leadership. The memorial gardens needed tending. And somewhere in the universe, there were probably more refugees who needed protection. She looked at the crystal cube containing New Horizons' image one last time. "We did it," she whispered. "We made sure no one else will suffer like you did." The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their weapons. It was their unwillingness to let the innocent suffer, while the powerful escaped justice. They had turned their grief into purpose, and their tragedy into hope. And among the stars, that hope was spreading like wildfire, lighting the way to a better future for all sentient life.